Hello, amazing business owners, and welcome back to another episode of Bold with Brooke, the podcast and place to be if you want to actually make a living doing what you love. You've may have noticed by now that my voice sounds a little different because I'm not Brooke. I'm today's guest host. Brooke has been extremely sick and in the process of trying to heal has lost her voice, so I'm filling in. My name is Shayna Hardy, and I'm a boudoir and branding photographer in Baltimore, Maryland, and I've been a friend of Brooke's for years and admire her work, so I'm happy and excited to fill in for today. I'm also so excited to introduce today's episode so that you can get some actionable content even if Brooke can't speak. She's working on healing and will be back as soon as possible, but she didn't want you to go without. For the next couple of weeks, while Brooke prepares more episodes, you'll get to hear some of the most listened to conversations and encore performances with guest hosts introducing them like me. Even if you've heard them before, listen in. I promise you'll get to something new out of it. I know that even if I've heard the same advice several times, I will hear something new or see a different perspective each time. Today's episode is an interview with Alex Loveland, formerly known as Alex Chalkley, an extremely successful and straightforward photography business coach who has helped over 15,000 photographers all over the world to grow their businesses and see abundance and lives they didn't think were possible. This episode is technically about photography marketing ideas that work, but even if you're not a photographer, you're going to hear a ton of gems and takeaways on how to price your business, look at the actual work you're putting in, and market your business appropriately so that you're making a living and not working yourself into burnout. And while a lot has changed for both Brooke and Alex in their lives, these are still concepts that remain consistent: marketing, profitability, and sustainability. Those are all skills we can learn on, right? Thank you so much for being here today. I know how much Brooke loves working with her students to help them grow their businesses, and she can't wait to be back in full force on this podcast very, very soon. Let's listen in to finances, marketing, and travel. Marketing ideas that work with Alex Loveland.
Hello there, gorgeous business owners. Welcome to Bold with Brooke, the podcast for creative business owners to learn the marketing and business skills they need to get more clients and design their lives on their terms so we can actually make a living doing what we love. Am I right? I am your host, Brooke Summer, and I'm an entrepreneur, educator, and champion of women, reminding them to embrace and step into their power. I'm bringing almost 20 years of business and marketing experience straight to you to help you get more clients and run a sustainable and successful business without burnout or overwhelm. Let's jump into today's topic. Hello, amazing entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. I am so excited for today's episode. I have an amazing businesswoman with me today, and we're going to talk about things that a lot of people shy away from. So I'm excited for that. But before I go too far into that, I do want to ask that if you are enjoying any of the episodes that you're hearing, if you can head on over to iTunes and leave a review. I would so much appreciate that. I know that it takes a few minutes, but it really helps me know what you want to learn more about. We have so many topics that we can go over, and it just helps me know a little bit more about what I can help you with. So let's move right in. I am thrilled to have the amazing Alex Chalkley with me today from Alex Chalkley Boudoir. She is a boudoir photographer in Virginia who is crazy successful and just so down to earth. And I love reading pretty much anything she says. So Alex, thank you so much for being here today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Brooke. I'm excited.
I really do love, one thing that I really, really love about you is that you don't shy away from topics that are sometimes like taboo, like money.
Yes. I am very no nonsense about that.
Well, so many people are afraid of money. So we're going to go dive way into that. And we have before, and it was actually the most downloaded episode that I've ever had because I feel like people need this conversation. But before we go there, first, tell me a little bit more about you. Who is Alex? What has your journey been like to get to where you are today?
Oh, man. How far back would you like me to go?
Whatever you feel is relevant, whatever you want to share.
Okay, so I have been a photographer my entire life. I got my first camera when I was 7, and I'm really stubborn. If you know me, it's not surprising. So I decided at a really young age that I wanted to be a photographer. I had no idea what that meant or how I was going to make money or anything like that. So the rest of that came later, but I did end up going to Savannah College of Art and Design and majoring in photography when it was time to do that. And but really, I didn't start portraiture until after college. I was a fine artist and worked with film and developed in the darkroom and focused more on landscapes and seascapes. But once I graduated, I was like, oh shit, I have $100,000 in student loans and I have to figure out how to pay them. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So I started weddings after that. And then I realized that I really, really hate weddings. So eventually I found Sue Bryce, who is totally my hero and my inspiration for what became my boudoir business. And that was in 2012. So that was 6 years ago already.
That's amazing. Isn't it funny how fast time flies? Next year will be 10 years in boudoir for me.
That's
and I'm
insane.
just like floored.
Yeah, that's awesome though. I love it.
Oh my gosh. So we're just going to dive right into money.
All right.
It's such a taboo topic, and so many business owners will just say 6 figures.
Right.
Like, and that's their magic term. Like, that's the elusive goal that everyone wants to get to. And I was there too. Like, I remember when I hit 6 figures going, okay, now what do I do? But they don't really share any behind the scenes, and you do. So in your journey, have you had any like crazy aha moments, a time when you realized that money doesn't have to be so scary and that you can kick ass and make whatever you want, depending on the amount of work you want to put in and your pricing and all that good stuff?
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. I think so. When I first started, I was one of those. I think when I first started, I was charging like $150 for everything on a disc back then.
Nice.
Which kind of dates me because who even uses discs anymore? Yep. But that's what I was doing. And I eventually, when I found Sue Bryce, that's kind of when it all shifted for me. So I learned that you could actually make a real living from this. And that kind of blew my mind. But I did have money blocks like most people do. And I really had to work hard to overcome that. So I basically went from $150 for everything on a disc to a $1,500 average sale almost overnight.
Wow.
And that was a really terrifying jump for me. I remember walking, this was back in 2013. So I remember like pacing my house and saying my new prices out loud to myself until I started believing them.
Right.
So that was kind of the big shift for me. And since then, with just time and experience and having new goals for myself, it's kind of inched up over time.
Yes. And what did that, I know Sue Bryce had a lot to do with it, and I absolutely love her as well. What did that look like, though, as far as what did you change in your business to go from 150 to 1,500 average?
That's a good question. Mostly just my price list. I mean, my work didn't drastically improve overnight. It was just a different way of structuring things. And I started in-person sales. And that is crucial yes. to having a profitable business. Like for me, there's not really a way around that if you want to make serious money in photography.
I agree completely. People try to argue with me on that all the time. And I mean, I'm a big fan of you do you and you do whatever works for you. But I'm telling you, when so many successful people tell you in-person sales works, there's a reason.
Right. Exactly. Like, have fun if you want to, but when you're ready to get serious, I'll be here to help you.
Right. Exactly. So when you went from an 150 to 1,500 average and you just changed your pricing, did you lose clients?
I did lose most of my clients at first. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of it because when you raise your prices, you start attracting people who actually want to invest money in photography.
Yes.
And I think there's a big shift that happens there. So I'm still friends with a lot of my clients from the very beginning. So I'm not trying to talk trash about them at all, but it's a different type of person. Yes. It's a different type of person. And I feel like pricing is also one of the ways that you differentiate yourself from other photographers around you.
Absolutely.
Because People associate value with price. So if you're more expensive, your clients who are searching for a photographer are going to learn your prices and be like, oh, well, she's more expensive than this other person. She must be better. That's just psychologically how our brain works.
Let's talk about that for a sec. So
Mhm.
people associate value with price. I completely agree with you. I've done the homework on the psychology, but a lot of people will argue with that. And so I would love to maybe give some examples. So for instance, if you buy a $20 shirt at Walmart and then
Bingo.
you buy a $100 shirt at Nordstrom, which one are you going to take better care of? What
Exactly.
else? Yeah, what else have you seen as far as price, like being higher priced? Who are you seeing come into your business more and more?
Well, I think it's just people who value photography. So we all have different value systems. I've never been like a brand name girl. You will not find me in the Coach store buying a purse. You just
Yes.
won't. So a regular like bag from Target or just even a canvas bag is good enough for me. I don't need anything like that. So it just comes down to what people value. And so I think by being priced at a certain point, you just start naturally attracting those kinds of clients. And I
You
think
do.
your Walmart example is a great, I always say you don't go into Walmart looking for a Coach purse,
No.
right?
Yeah.
And you don't go to McDonald's looking for a steak from Ruth's Chris.
That's
So
so true.
it's just the basic psychology of that. And it really does work. It's so true.
It does. And a lot of people, again, like want to talk themselves out of it because they are not their ideal client.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell my husband, like, he would be happy to spend $1,000 to $2,000 on a new horn, which I am like, really?
Right.
Everyone has different things that they value, whereas I would eat ramen for a year to go on a killer trip at the end of the year.
Exactly. Exactly. No, my fiance and I have that same conversation. Like he'll drop $13,000 on a welding table for his shop. I probably spend that same amount or more in travel each year, and he
Right?
doesn't. So
Right?
values
And
different.
he just doesn't see, but everyone has different things. And we all know that person that is broke and can never go out, but they drive a brand new truck.
Totally.
Like everyone just has different values, and it's okay not to be your own ideal client.
Absolutely. Yeah. I get that because I was there, at the beginning, but once I started actually looking at my financial goals, there comes a time where you just have to step up to the plate and be like, how badly do I want this?
Yes,
And that's what it
absolutely.
comes down to.
When I was in training for marketing, someone told me you can't spend from someone else's wallet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You cannot decide what's expensive for someone else because
Oh,
everyone is different.
so true. That's so true.
So, what would you tell a new business owner about pricing themselves appropriately? Do you think that they should start low and work their way up? Do you think they should start at a point that's sustainable and match their services to that pricing structure?
I think it's important to start from the big picture and work backwards. So,
Okay, so
um,
what does that look like?
yeah. So if you want, I can walk through a really simple exercise for the listeners to figure out
Yeah.
your pricing. Okay, cool. So the big question is, how much do you want to make a year? And this, we're talking about take home. So not gross revenue, but after taxes, after business expenses, how much do you want to make a year? So I like to start, like if we're talking base level here, I like to start with about a $60,000 figure because running your business is hard freaking work and you want to get paid like a real salary for it.
Yes.
So I like a $60,000 starting point. So kind of the general rule, and this is very general, everyone's overhead is going to be completely different. So you're going to have to do the legwork on your own for this, but these are the general rules. So we typically get to keep a little less than half of what we make, generally speaking.
Mhm.
So what I'm going to do is take $60,000 and multiply that by 2.5, and I'm going to get $150,000. So $150,000 is now our new goal for the gross revenue of our business for a calendar year if we want to take home 60,000 of that.
Yes.
Okay? So then we'll take 150,000 And the next step is to figure out how many shoots per week is realistic for you to do. So how many clients can you actually get in the door? How much time do you have in a week? These are really important considerations. So if you're struggling to get one client a week, you're not going to make 5 shoots a week your realistic goal.
Yes.
Right away. You can work up to that, but it's important to be realistic. So if you're getting one client a week, let's say your new goal for a new year with a new marketing plan and just really busting it is going to be 2 clients a week. So then we have to decide how many weeks a year do we want to work. Do you have an answer for that question, Brooke?
I do. And that's actually something that's really important to me because I have 2 kids and I take the entire month of December off.
Me too.
So,
no kids.
I work about 40 weeks a year.
40 weeks. Okay, cool. My number is 46. And I actually, it's probably realistically more like 44 or 42. I travel a lot, but I travel a lot for work too. So I don't know how to quantify that. But I think, 48, 46 is a really great starting point for most people. So for our example, I'm going to use 48. So we're going to take 2 shoots a week and multiply that by 48. And we'll get a total of 96 sessions per year. Mm-hmm. And this is really just for portrait photographers. Wedding photographers, if you do a mix, you're going to have to do it like section by section. How much of your revenue do you want to come from weddings? How much from newborn? How much from, you can break it down by group depending on if you offer different things or not. I'm 100% boudoir, so this is what I do. Mm-hmm. So then we'll take 150,000, which is the number we got earlier, and we're going to divide that by 96 sessions per year. And now our new average sale goal is $1,562.50. So that's how I come up with like what average sale I'm going for per client when you break it down that way. And then what I like to do from there is add a little bit of a buffer, because what if we don't meet our goal? I still want to get to if we don't meet our booking goal, I still want to get to our financial goal, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bump that average sale probably up to like $1,750. And then what you're going to have to do is create a price list that is designed so that you hit that number every single time with very little effort.
I absolutely love that. When I said 40, I was taking out travel as well. So I don't really know how to quantify that either.
Sure. Yeah.
But someone recently told me, and she's kind of a financial person, day job and a photographer on the side, that you don't get to decide how much you make. And I was like, isn't that kind of why we go into business? Like, you do get to make that decision. When you're the boss, you get to decide that.
Absolutely. That's the whole point of it, I think.
Yes, that's huge. And let's talk about another piece of that too, that a lot of people kind of ignore and stick their head in the sand, like myself, but I have a bookkeeper that takes care of it for me, is taxes. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. And sales tax eats me up.
Yeah, I think you just have to develop systems around these things. So I have different accounts in my business kind of bank, I guess. Mm-hmm. And every time money hits my account, I automatically take 40% and shove it in my tax account, pretend it never even existed.
Yes.
And then
that's so smart.
Yeah, I pay quarterlies from there, and I pay sales tax from there as well. So it kind of covers everything. You can have separate accounts for those 2 things if you want to, but I'm disciplined enough where I can keep on top of it.
Yes, that's so smart. I mean, finance is definitely a strength for you. And while I get by and I understand the goals and stuff, I don't enjoy it. Like, to me, it's soul sucking. So I have people that take care of that for me.
Yeah, that's important to recognize, because if it's not your strength, you definitely want someone solid on your team, because it's such a huge part of it.
That's true. And I think that a lot of times people go, well, like, for instance, I'm really good at math. It could be my strength, but I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. Right. And it's okay to let those things go in your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would go even further and say that it's important to let those things go if they're not making you happy, because then what happens is you fall behind, you get penalized, especially for dealing with taxes. Like, it becomes a huge, huge mess. So if it's not your strength, outsource it.
Yes. And then you can spend your time doing what you're good at.
Right. Exactly. And that's why we work for ourselves. We only like doing the things we want to do.
Exactly. I've decided that I'm pretty much unemployable at this point.
Me too.
Um, because I don't think I could go into an office because I say what I want and I wear what I want and I do what I want.
It would be so bad. I would be fired so fast.
Right? Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Well, I absolutely love your formula. And I know that you and I had talked a little bit earlier this year. I was strictly a la carte. I did not have any collections. And you inspired me to bring them back.
And how's that going?
Um, it's about half and half.
Okay.
So I'd say about half my clients love collections and half don't. And but it's still pretty new. I just implemented it in September, so it's still pretty new.
Okay, cool.
But I like the option of having everything together, and I think that that is a nice option for my clients as well. Plus, the pricing is where I want it to be.
Exactly.
And so it kind of just makes it easy, which is kind of cool.
I introduced collections at the beginning of 2017, and within, as soon as I did that, my average sale jumped from $2,100 to $3,100, like immediate.
Wow. This wasn't even on my list to talk about, but since we're there, let's talk about collections. Do you think that 3 or 4 is better? There's a lot of people that think that your top collection should be something that you expect to never ever sell. Right. Because it's that outrageous and outlandish.
Yes. Yep. I agree with that. I have had historically 3 collections, but I did just add a 4th for 2019. So I'm really curious to see how that's going to work. And my goal in adding that 4th collection was to increase my average sale. So I've kind of bumped everything up to point people to the 2nd from the top collection, which is a little bit more expensive than my middle collection was this year. But I do believe that, your top collection should be a little bit, like way too much actually. And your bottom collection should be something that people aren't really going to be interested in buying at a really high price point.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And do you price your collections to be collectively lower than a la carte?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah, so kind of like a discount.
Exactly. And I actually even put that on my price list. So in 2018, my middle collection was $2,800, and in parentheses next to it, I have $4,000 value.
Absolutely.
So people can see really clearly how much they're saving by going that route.
Yes. And do you price your digitals individually or as a group?
Nope. It's all or nothing for me.
Sweet. That's how I used to do it as well. Mine are individual now, but I used to do the all or nothing. I see benefits to both. I feel like there's good and bad to either option.
Sure. Yeah. Depends on what works for you.
Sweet. Well, you had mentioned earlier that you had money blocks that you needed to work through. So what did that look like? Like, what did you struggle with?
I think it all comes down to, I think a lot of people struggle with not feeling deserving of that. You know what I mean? In general, people struggle with self-worth and whether or not we deserve to be paid what we want to make.
Yes.
And I wish I had a solid answer for how I got over it. But I think looking at my future and thinking about my own financial goals really helped, because I'm a Taurus. So like my stubborn nature kind of took over, and my determination, I was like, well, if this is the goal, then this is what we have to do to reach it. So for me, I think that was really helpful. And I know a lot of people don't operate that way. But like I said, when I went from 150 to 1,500, I really literally just had to say it out loud to myself until I started believing it.
I think that's so important. And I kind of want to dive into the whole future thing, because especially for self-employed business people, how many of us are not planning for our futures, like retirement? We don't have that 401k. We don't have that built-in a system through an employer.
No.
So what did you look at when you say your future? Were you looking that far in advance? Were you looking at 5 years? What was your plan?
I always am in the future. So, but you mentioned something. We don't have a 401k, but we have something better. We have a SEP IRA.
Oh, yes.
And that with the 401k, you're limited to, I think, don't quote me on these numbers, y'all, but look it up if you're interested. But I think, hold on, I will look it up real quick because I do want this to be accurate. So when you're in a traditional 401k, your contribution limit for 2018 was $18,500 per year.
Okay.
Okay. Compare that to a SEP IRA where if you start making some serious money, your contribution, I believe, can be capped at about 55,000.
Wow.
I think it's 20% of your gross revenue. No, not gross revenue, gross profit. Something like that. Look it up because it's huge. It's huge. And of course, that is pre-tax. So you will be taxed on that amount when you pull it out. But still, being able to put that amount of money in investments, that'll make you a millionaire so fast.
And I think that, and again, I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not a strength for me, but I believe that my accountant told me you can actually do this sub IRA backwards too. Meaning that in April of 2019, if you look at your numbers in 2018 and you're kind of freaking out and you're like, I'm going to pay a ton of taxes, you can actually put some in at that point and count it towards 2018.
You can do that before your taxes are filed.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Before you file taxes for the previous year, you have until, the tax deadline to file your taxes. So any leading up to that point, you can, if you have the money laying around, which not a lot of people do, Brooke, that's the problem.
Well, yes,
that's
true.
So if you get your taxes back and, before you actually file them, you're like, shit, well, if I dump 60K or 55,000, which is the cap for the SEP IRA. If I dump 55,000, then I'm not taxed on that. But who's going to have $55,000 laying around?
Right.
Most people won't.
That's so true. And I feel like, okay, so let's talk about like the idea, the concept that when you make more, you spend more. Like we always think that when I make more, I'm going to be good.
Oh my gosh.
That's it. But you spend so much more too, not just in business, but personally.
That is so true. And I'm so glad you brought this up because I just read Profit First by Mike Michalowicz for the first time. And that is the whole premise of that book is we have a hard time setting aside profit and paying ourselves more because the more money we make in our business, the more we're spending.
Yes.
It's so crazy. So I recommend anyone who has not read his book, go get it today and read it today. It will change your freaking life as far as your business finances go. So he recommends limiting. So I used to have everything in one business account. Like all my income would come in, I would let it snowball and build up in there to the point sometimes where I would have, 80 to 100,000 just sitting in this account. So when you're looking at that number and you're like, okay, well, do I want to plan this like really expensive trip to Greece and, shoot some promotional stuff and, it's a business expense. Sure, I can drop 10 grand, no problem. Like it doesn't hurt as much.
Yes.
So now what I do is I have all my income go into one main account, but on the 10th and the 25th of each month, I divvy it up between 4 categories. Profit.
What are your categories?
Yeah, so it's profit. It's operating expenses. So that's all your bills and all your cost of goods and things like that. So that comes out of operating expenses. There's owner's pay and there's taxes.
Interesting. I have always worked from kind of a third mentality. So a third to taxes, a third to business, and a third for income.
Basically, yes, that's really close. And the only difference here is that he's doing profit. So his theory with profit is that, we want to be as profitable as we can. So I let the profit build up in the account. And what he does is he says at the end of each quarter, you pay yourself a bonus from that profit account. So you take half of everything that's in that profit account and you pay it to yourself as a bonus. And it cannot be invested back into the business. It has to be used for like fun or pay debt if you still have debt. But if you're debt free, that is your reward for running a business. And I love that idea because it becomes so motivating.
Yes. I was just thinking that, like, what a crazy motivation.
Yes. And I love it because most people will wait till the year's end to give themselves a bonus.
Yes.
But a quarterly bonus is like, look, that's only 90 days away. I got to hustle if I want that money.
Right. And that also, so everyone is motivated by different things. Maybe someone wants a new car. For me, it's travel. And I actually agreed with my husband that at the end of June, if I met a certain revenue goal, that I could book the cruise that I wanted.
Yeah.
And I met it in May.
Yeah. So see?
Because I was motivated to do that.
Right.
And really paying yourself half of that profit, that money is just a tool. You can use it to do whatever you want. Maybe it's donating somewhere to a charity that you believe in, but ultimately it's just a tool.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I am a huge fan. I just started it last month, but I'm a huge fan. So I really recommend anyone who that sort of intrigued, definitely go get that book and read it. It's a good one.
That's crazy. I love it. I have put it off because the thought of multiple bank accounts terrifies me because I already have like, I don't know, 8, 10, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you should see.
Oh my gosh, when I log into the bank thing and I have to scroll down, I'm like, this is not okay.
I love so because everything has a purpose and a plan.
That's true.
And that prevents you from spending as much as you would if it were all just in one big ass account, right?
That's very true. I should probably embrace that. I'm not very good at that.
Yep. It takes practice. It was a little scary for me at first because I'm so used to seeing like I'm the person that has a backup to their backup to their backup to their backup. So, I have my, he calls it the vault account, which is like the emergency fund for the business. So I have that, but it's a little lower than it was because I wanted to split up these other numbers. So
yeah,
it's a transition, but I think in the long run, it'll be good. I'm excited.
That's super cool. I think that we'll have to put that on the book club list.
Yes.
So I know that whenever we talk about money, especially when it comes to small business owners, newer photographers, the temptation for someone that's just starting out is to think that this happened overnight. We recently last year built our dream house and moved in last year. And I've heard like snide comments of, oh, must be nice.
Oh my, don't you love that?
And people don't realize that I lived with my in-laws for 7 years.
Right.
To make this happen.
Right.
Like we worked so hard to make this happen. So what can you tell someone who is just starting out and wants to be where you're at right now?
It's easier now than it was. When you and I started Brooke, Facebook wasn't really a thing. There weren't these educational resources that we have now.
Yes.
Someone jumping in now could do what it took me 5 years to do in about 18 months.
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
You know what I mean? So it's really hard to say. I mean, but my best advice is don't give up. I mean, there are so many times along this journey where I could have thrown in the towel, but when it's your dream, you just have to be persistent, put in the work. Don't be scared of hard work. Yes. And just literally don't give up because it took 5 solid years for the ball to start rolling on its own.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
There's so many years of hustle. I saw something recently that said being an entrepreneur means living your life like most people won't for a few years so that you can live your life like most people want to.
That's so
for the rest of your life.
That's so true. And I think it's important also to make the distinction. So if there are any photographers listening out there and they're like, oh, well, I'm in year 4 and I still have to do model calls. I still have to do contests. I still have to do giveaways. I still have to do flash sales. That's okay. That's normal. That's normal. 2018 was the first year where I did not have to rely on those things to keep my calendar full.
Wow.
First year.
Think about bigger brands. Like think about even the super successful stores that you see, like even Target has sales.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's so true.
It's just part of marketing. It's just part of being top of mind for people and reminding people. And I think especially with boudoir, it takes a little bit of stalking for someone to feel comfortable.
Absolutely. I can't even tell you how many phone calls I get from potential clients. And they're like, I've been in your group on Facebook for a couple of years and stalked you. And now I think I finally am ready. So like, even if you have a private group on Facebook, which so many of us recommend as boudoir photographers, it just because you open it doesn't mean the inquiries are going to start coming out of the woodwork.
Right. And I think that a huge part of this too that we need to consider is that Facebook is an amazing resource and Instagram is a great source for marketing, but you need to get out from behind the computer.
A little bit. Yeah, that's important, especially with boudoir. It's so vulnerable. You got to earn people's trust before they're going to get naked in your studio.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so true. So last year, someone kind of came after me in a Facebook group and basically said that I was a business person first and not as much of an artist as she was. And now her words are always in the back of my head, not in a bad way, but just in looking at examples of other business people who are both successfully at the same time. You went to art school.
I did.
You run a successful business. So what do you have to say, or what do you think about the idea of the starving artist?
I think it's bullshit.
Yes.
I'm very similar to you, Brooke, though. I don't consider myself creative. I don't consider myself an artist, even if I went to art school.
Really?
I can't create an original thought or thing to save my life. I really can't. But I'm so much more of a systems person. So what I've done is just, I'm not saying I'm not talented. I do have a certain set of skills artistically. I just don't, I'm not the kind of person that can walk into a shoot in a new situation and wing it. That's not me.
Yes.
My brain doesn't work like that. I wish it did. There are so many talented photographers in our industry, and I'm just literally in awe of their creativity and how they can walk into a room and create. I wouldn't even know where to start. It's just not how my brain works. So, and I absolutely do not think artists need to be starving. I think we have skills and that we should charge appropriately for them. And the reason that people find value in our work is because they can't do it themselves. And I think that that's important to remember.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that it's so important to charge appropriately because you value what you do. Because if you don't value what you do, no one else will.
Oh, that's so true. And I mean, we have to charge too because we have families to support. We have roofs to keep over our own heads. We have $100,000 in student loans. I paid it off, thankfully. But Lord, I mean, come on.
Oh my gosh. Is it completely gone?
It's gone. It's gone.
Oh, that's amazing.
I know. I just paid off all that in May.
Wow. And how many people come out of school with that now?
Oh,
that's
God,
crazy.
everyone.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Well, one of the reasons that I sent you the message to be on the show today was because you posted a while back, and of course now I can't find this stupid post, but in your group about finding new clients and marketing. And marketing is just one piece of a successful business and overall strategy. But I loved what you shared because your ideas weren't complicated, they weren't time consuming or expensive. So what are 5 quick marketing tips that you can give someone to help rev up the momentum in their business to get to that place of financial freedom?
Oh, man. Okay. So starting at the most basic, this is one of my biggest pet peeves. Your Facebook profile, your personal Facebook profile. You need to have a decent ass headshot for your photo.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. What are you doing? You have to have a professional looking photo of yourself if you're a professional photographer and want to be perceived as such.
Yes.
It drives me crazy. So that's the first thing. Also making sure that you are easy to find. A lot of people overlook that one. With the privacy things these days, I understand the tendency to want to have your profile on lock, but you have to at least make sure that your website is visible, your Facebook page is visible, so that people who are searching for you can find you and can get in touch.
Yes.
So those are the 2 things you can do on your personal page. And then if you have a private group, obviously that's a huge one, having a private group in general, especially if you're a boudoir photographer. So having a private group, but also making sure that when you are posting things in there, I always link my contact information at the bottom of everything I post. Because if you post, go ahead.
Crazy important.
Important.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's so important because if you post something that inspires someone to book a shoot, you want to make it as easy as possible to reach you.
Yeah.
Because people are lazy.
Especially because people are on their phone.
People are on their phone and they're lazy. If it takes too much work, they're not going to do it. So you have to link them. I always link my contact form for my website in general, my email, my Instagram. I give them everything because I don't want them to have to look very far if they're trying to get in touch with me and are ready to book a shoot.
Absolutely. That's so important. I actually wrote something about calls to action and how important they are, but I never use it in my Facebook group because I almost use that in a different way. So I completely agree with that. I use it everywhere else, but yeah, that's so important.
Girl, it's so important. So important. So that's one major thing. Another thing, and this is mostly for boudoir photographers, I would assume, but before and afters are like literally gold.
Do you do those with every shoot? Because I forget.
Every single shoot.
Oh my gosh, you're killing me. I forget.
Every single shoot. It's imperative because normal people looking at finished boudoir photos, what's the first thing that goes through our head as women? Oh, I don't look
like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. I don't look like that. She's beautiful. I'm not that beautiful. I could never do that. So what the before and after does is it just illustrates the fact that everyone can do this.
Yes. And I keep pushing. I have students that are family photographers, and I don't do families, but who needs a hair and makeup day a little more than other people? A mom does.
No kidding. I think providing that for family shoots is absolutely imperative.
Oh my gosh, but no one does.
That's insane to me because guess what?
Right?
If mom likes how she looks in the photos, she's going to buy them all.
Exactly.
Like, what are you doing? When I was shooting families, I would absolutely include that in my session feed.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. That's so important. I think it would be a total game changer and it would set someone apart too.
Yes, it absolutely would. That plus a consultation for family shoots is imperative. I mean, yes. And a little bit of Photoshop, y'all, and good poses.
Right.
Come on now.
I don't know if you know Misty. She's a friend of mine, and she is a zero Photoshop studio, and she and I disagree vehemently on this. But I've had clients that their husbands put cigarettes out on their arms. They've been through hell. Who am I and who is anyone else to tell them that they have to keep those scars in photos?
Girl, my clients come to me because I Photoshop. So I think there's a market for everything. I think there are lots of people who love the no Photoshop thing. I'm not one of them, and neither are my clients.
Right. Well, and retouching has been done for decades. This is not new.
This is not new.
We just have a word for it now in Photoshop.
If anything, it's getting more realistic.
Yes.
Like we're not trying to make people look like totally different.
Correct. I always tell my clients I will not Photoshop you to be someone different than you are, but I will show you the best version of yourself.
Yeah. My goal is never for my clients to look at an image and be like, damn, she Photoshopped the hell out of me.
Right. I had a client that her husband was not very nice to her and told her, Brooke just Photoshopped everything. You're not that pretty. And I actually showed her before and afters.
Wow. Yeah.
To show her how much I did not Photoshop her.
Yeah.
And she is now separated from him.
Good.
Thank God. But
I was going to say.
Oh my gosh. So let's talk about one of my favorite subjects, the travel piece to all of this.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
Travel can be super expensive. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. But I have found in my business that there are ways to travel and work while traveling so that I'm getting paid. My husband travels for work often, and sometimes I will tag along with him because then my hotel is paid for.
Yeah.
And I shoot when I travel. So how can someone set themselves up for a trip, maybe abroad, maybe in the US, as a business trip and actually make some revenue instead of just spending thousands to travel?
So this is kind of a loaded question. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. Now in the age of, Facebook ads and Instagram, it's easier to reach people in different locations. Yes. When I was doing this 5 and 6 years ago, that wasn't really a big thing. So what I did was I picked a few places that I knew I would probably want to go to repeatedly. And I literally just went and built a network in that place.
So are you talking locally or abroad? Because I feel like...
domestically, yeah. I would go to like Austin and California.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And but definitely in Europe too, because I lived in Amsterdam for 5 years. So I would travel around, and I think the best way is just to go and get to know people and give out gift vouchers for free shoots, especially if you're doing boudoir, because boudoir, the trust factor is huge. So it kind of extend the first branch, you know what I mean? And let
definitely
in they're more likely to trust you and go with the experience. And then the ball starts rolling from there with referrals, and it just grows over time.
Do you work with email marketing? Do you use that?
At all. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's actually how I book my travel shoots, is through email marketing. Because I have people that will forward them to their friends in different places, and I book them like
That's
easily.
Yeah. That's really
But the same could be done with Facebook.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like tag someone in California or tag someone in Austin.
Exactly. Yeah. There's so many different ways to do it now. So many.
Definitely. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to book your calendar solid.
Right.
That's one thing I struggle with, because I'm like, well, I want to pay for the entire trip, but I had to let that go because I also wanted to enjoy the trip.
That is the challenge. Every time I travel for work, it's like I get home and I'm exhausted, and my fiance is like, well, what do you mean? You just spent 3 weeks in Europe. I'm like, yeah, but I was working the whole time.
Right?
And traveling on top of it. It's exhausting.
Yes. It just kind of drains you, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I used to travel when I was living in Amsterdam, I would come back to the States every 6 to 8 weeks. So, I mean, talk about exhausting.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yes. I think that we have a trip every month coming up until February, and that's too much. And my husband and I were talking about, I think 1 trip a quarter is good.
That's our goal.
I think that's good. And one of my goals, actually, my business goals, is to live abroad for a month every year.
I love that.
That kind of changed when I had my daughter, just because things are a little different now, but it's still a goal. It's just put off a little bit.
You can do it with kids.
Absolutely. And I would definitely bring my kids. But she will be in more of a traditional school, whereas my son is not.
Okay.
So it's a little different.
Yeah.
But it just depends on the timing.
Totally. Yeah.
So what is a piece of advice that you would go back and tell yourself 5 years ago if you could?
5 years ago. I think that's tricky, because 5 years ago I was in a really different situation than I'm in now. So like wouldn't even apply. You know what I mean? I think I would just say keep going, because I had just gotten on the right track. So I would just be like, yep, this is it. Keep doing it.
Yes. And that track is not always easy.
No, it wasn't. It was no, easy is not.
Right? So keep going is like something that you need to keep hearing on repeat in your head.
Absolutely. And I'm lucky because I was born with that naturally. So, but yeah, if you need it, write it on your mirror, write it on, like keep it as the background, the lock screen on your phone. You know what I mean?
Right? Tattoo it on your forehead, all of the above.
Yes.
What is the lesson that took you the longest to learn?
Business-wise?
Business or personal?
Personal, the first thing that pops into my head is you don't have to fix people.
Ouch.
It's not your job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge.
That is a tough one, I think, for a lot of people to learn.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes into like people pleasing as well, which also bleeds into your business too.
Absolutely. I think business wise, the toughest lesson was just getting my pricing in the right place and making the jump into in-person sales. Those 2 things changed my life. Not an exaggeration.
I just talked with someone else about in-person sales, and I feel like it's something that's so scary for people. If you could tell someone that does not do in-person sales one piece of advice, one thing they must do at every in-person sales appointment, ordering appointment, whatever you want to call it, what would you tell them?
Shut your mouth.
How so?
Well, I think one of the most important things when you're doing the in-person sales process is pre-education, right? So from the first point of contact with your client, you should be not subconsciously, you're consciously steering them, but you should be steering them towards what you want them to end up purchasing.
Yes.
There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. One of my favorites is people love to do what most people do, right? Mm-hmm. So I always tell my clients, this is what most people do. They get this package, they get this album. Most people get 45 to 50 images in their album, which is an immediate upsell for me because my albums start at 20 images. So there's little ways you can steer people that way. Once you get to the actual in-person sales session, your client should basically already know what they're doing. And what I do, I just sit down. I do this on my laptop, so it doesn't even need to be anything fancy. We sit down on my futon in the studio. I hand them the laptop. I say, okay, everything's here for you. I'm just going to hand this to you and let you click through at your own speed. We're going to look through this once. Your only job right now is just to look and see everything that we got. And then when we get to the end, we'll circle back to the beginning and start choosing favorites.
Yeah.
So I shut up and I let them look at the pictures. I mean, I will say, as each picture comes up, I'm like, oh my God, you look great. Or, sincere compliments. It's not fake, but
definitely like love your eyes in that one.
Exactly. That color on you is amazing. Like, look at your legs. Oh my God, look at your butt. Looks great.
Yes.
So things like that. So I let them click through and then I go back to the beginning and tell them to star their favorites. And so the whole time I'm just sitting there kind of quietly letting them do their thing. Once they choose favorites, we'll pull up the price list and I'm like, okay, so did you have anything in mind? And I'll walk them through it one more time. At this point, they've already seen the price list about 3 times. And usually they know. And so it's so easy. There's no hard sell. I think that's a big misconception.
That is huge. I feel like so many people think that in-person sales is very salesy, like used car sales.
It's so not. It's so not. I mean, if it were, I wouldn't be doing it because I am not that kind of person.
It's a higher level of service.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's the difference between trying on something at Walmart and trying on something at Nordstrom when you have someone outside saying, do you need a different size?
Or you look amazing. Definitely get that one.
Yeah, it's totally different. And people don't understand that. I'm not going to try and sell someone a huge canvas for a wall they don't have room on.
Right. Exactly.
It gives me the opportunity to help them.
Exactly. And I've had so much feedback from clients about how much they enjoy the process and how it's so helpful because in the past, they've gone with photographers who don't do in-person sales. And what do those pictures do? They've been sitting on a disc for a decade.
Yes. My wedding photos are still in a drawer.
Yep. See? Yep, exactly.
On a disc.
Yeah. And if your wedding photographer had made you get together for an album design consultation, guess what?
Yeah.
You'd have an album and probably wall art.
Well, and they live in Florida, so in our situation it wasn't even possible.
Well,
but it's so true.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true. And it is our job as professionals to serve our clients.
100%.
And that takes many different forms, whether it's education before a shoot on what to wear, or whether it's education after a shoot on what can I help you decorate your house with.
Right. Exactly.
So important. I love in-person sales. I know a lot of people think that I'm nuts for that, but it gives me a chance to connect to, and then I get to see their reaction.
That's the best part. Like, how many times, if you don't do in-person sales, how many times have you sent a gallery and never heard back from them?
Right? And you know what they're doing when you send that gallery? They're going to look at it on their phone and see it in its 2-inch glory. Nope.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nope. I'm going to show you on my 50-inch television.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just and it's fine, but
yeah. So definitely start with what you got. I love my big TV because I like for someone to see their butt really big.
I love it.
Because so many women are like, oh, I don't want my butt that big. I'm like, yes, you do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Oh my gosh. I absolutely love that. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Of course. Thank you. That's fun.
Isn't it fun? I love that we can just talk about, especially the financial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And dare I even go into this little realm, but I feel like women especially are so scared about this stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know why, other than maybe we hope someone else would do it for us.
I honestly don't even know because it's foreign to me because I've never been like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was trying to get my first job at 14, so like I've always craved the independence that money can give you.
I do as well. I just don't want to deal with the piece of it, like the logistics of it.
Yeah.
So I told my husband when we moved into this house, he goes, "Can I pay the bills?" I said, "Yep, just tell me how much to send you."
Yeah.
Tell me how much to transfer every month, because I just don't like the figuring out the interest and all that good stuff.
Right. Yeah. And I think if you're not the nerd in the relationship, then that's fine. Hopefully you're with them too.
Right? Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate your input. I think that you are a brilliant businesswoman, have so much to share with the world. Where can listeners find more about you, find more about what's going on? Tell me about Greece.
Yeah, so I do have an education group on Facebook for boudoir photographers. So if you are a boudoir photographer and you want to get in on that, you can just search my first and last name, Alex Chalkley, and the group should pop up. It's Alex Chalkley Boudoir for Photographers. And then I'm hosting a retreat in Santorini in September 2019 with Lindsay Ray Photography. So I'm super excited about that. It's going to be amazing. A pretty small group of women, but I think that's always best. That's going to be,
yes.
It's about half full right now. So I'm excited to see who ends up going on the trip.
That will be absolutely amazing. And for all the listeners, we will link all of this in the show notes too. Oh. So you don't have to just find it. But the retreat, talk to me about that. Is it a workshop? Is it kind of just a hangout trip? What does that look like?
So there will be, originally we were going to do two separate portions of it. We were going to do like a workshop part and then a separate retreat part, but I think we're going to combine it and just make it a little bit longer. So if you don't want to attend for the workshop, you don't have to. You'll have free time. And there's only 2 half days of instruction. So we're keeping it real low key, but still packed with a lot of useful information for the people who are coming for the workshop portion.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of, there's going to be some private chartered sailboat rides with dinner and sunset on the boat, which is amazing. Wow. Lots of exploring Santorini, lots of shooting each other, and also bouncing ideas off of each other. That's kind of the whole point is I'd love for a group of slightly more experienced photographers to get together and just generate some new ideas and be able to just enjoy like how far we've come, basically.
Yes. That sounds amazing. Santorini is somewhere that I've always wanted to go.
It's going to be pretty epic.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. So I am just so appreciative of this conversation. I feel like I get the chance to talk with amazing women. What is your website? I know we're going to have the Facebook links, but if someone wanted to do a shoot with you, if they wanted to learn more about you, what is your website?
Sure. It's just alexchalkley.com. It's pretty easy.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. All right. I love this. Thank you so much for being here today. And I can't wait to see what happens. I'm actually seeing if I can go to Greece.
Yes. So good.
Yay. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Brooke.
And for all the listeners out there, this was crazy actionable and awesome, especially Alex's formula on how to decide what your goals should be and to work from the future backwards. I just, so much crazy, awesome information. If you love this episode, if you can head on over to iTunes, leave a review, I would so appreciate it. And also take a look at the show notes. You can find them at businessstraightup.com/podcast. You can see all the show notes there, see Alex's beautiful face, and get more information on the formula on her Facebook group and join us in Greece because that sounds amazing. So have an amazing rest of your day. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to join me in my Facebook group as well. And Alex has a ton of information in hers. Thank you so much for joining me today and listening in. You can find all of the show notes for this and every episode over at boldwithbrooke.com/podcast, where you can also find all of the links or resources mentioned. I can't wait to work with you. Have an amazing rest of your day.